Howdy, folks. If you're a fan of dusty trails, iconic standoffs, and the untamed spirit of the American West, you've come to the right place. We're about to take a ride through the Wild West, but not the one you've seen in the movies. We're going to uncover 25 of the dumbest, most common facts about the Wild West that folks believe, but are actually totally fake. You might be surprised by what's real and what's just Hollywood magic. Dumb fact number 1. Every cowboy wore a Stetson hat. Hollywood certainly paints a picture of a hero rarely seen without his wide-brimmed Stetson. Think of John Wayne, the quintessential cowboy. But the gritty reality? This image is a bit off. In the early days of the Wild West, cowboys wore all sorts of practical hats. Bowler hats, also known as derbies, were surprisingly common. In fact, some say the bowler was the hat that won the West. You'd also see Civil War-era military caps, sombreros, and simple flat caps. The Stetson, especially the Boss of the Plains model, did become popular, but that was later in the 19th century. And even those early Stetsons often had flatter brims and uncreased crowns, not quite the look we see in the movies. So why do we all picture the Stetson? Well, it eventually became a powerful symbol of the West, cemented by its use in later films and by showmen like Buffalo Bill Cody. Plus, that old movie trope of white hats for heroes and black hats for villains made the hat a key visual, accurate or not. Dumb fact number 2. Cowboys were all clean-shaven heroes. Hollywood sure likes to show them that way, looking fresh even after weeks on a dusty cattle drive. But the reality of life on the range made daily grooming, especially shaving, a luxury. Working cowboys spent long stretches on cattle drives with limited access to water or shaving gear. So, they were often unshaven, their clothes dirty from hard work, and they usually wore the cheapest, most durable clothes they could find. Sure, they'd clean up when they got to town, but that clean-shaven look wasn't an everyday thing. Full beards were common, and so were other 19th century facial hairstyles like handlebar mustaches. This clean-shaven image really came from Hollywood in the 1940s and 50s when studios wanted their stars to look good for the box office, even if it wasn't historically accurate. Dumb fact number 3. All cowboys were white Americans. The movies might make you think so, with minority characters appearing rarely or in stereotypical roles. But this is one of the biggest distortions of Western history. The population of working cowboys was incredibly diverse. After the Civil War, it's estimated that up to a quarter of all cowboys were black, many of them formerly enslaved individuals looking for new lives. And a big chunk, maybe as much as 1/3 by the late 19th century, were Hispanic, mostly vaqueros from Mexico. These vaqueros actually originated many of the cattle herding techniques, equipment, and even the lingo that American cowboys adopted. Native Americans and even Chinese immigrants also worked as cowboys. So why the whitewashed version? Early Western entertainment, like dime novels and films, mostly featured white heroes and often marginalized or stereotyped minority groups, fitting with the biases of the time. Dumb fact number 4. Cowboys were hulking, tall figures. Think cowboys were all towering giants like John Wayne? The gritty reality is that real working cowboys were often on the smaller side. A successful cowboy was typically around 5 feet, 5 inches tall, and weighed between 120 and 150 pounds. Smaller, lighter men were generally better suited for long hours in the saddle, often on small, nimble ponies. Their build would be more like a modern-day jockey than the big heroes on screen. Hollywood, of course, preferred actors with a commanding presence, and so the myth of the larger-than-life Western hero got tied to physical size. Dumb fact number 5. Every cowboy carried a 6-shooter at his hip. This idea that every cowboy was always ready for a gunfight is largely a Hollywood invention. For most cowboys who were mainly ranch hands, carrying a handgun all the time wasn't necessary or even affordable. Pistols were heavy, awkward for physical labor, and early models could be unreliable. In fact, many ranchers and some counties even prohibited cowboys from carrying firearms on the job to prevent accidents or unnecessary fights. When cowboys did carry firearms, it was more likely a rifle or shotgun for hunting or protecting the herd from predators, not for dueling. A cowboy was more likely to have a rope and a hammer on his belt than a pistol. The gunslinger image, with all its weaponry, was just great for the action and drama in dime novels and movies. Dumb fact number 6. The cowboy's job was glamorous and adventurous. Was it really full of battling outlaws and rescuing damsels? Not quite. The day-to-day life of a cowboy was anything but glamorous. It was physically demanding, dirty, often monotonous, and a thankless job with low pay, sometimes less than $1 a day. The main work was managing and driving cattle over long distances, enduring harsh weather, dust, and the constant threat of stampedes or accidents. Loneliness was a big part of it too. A cowboy was more likely to be seriously hurt or to pass away from an accident with livestock or the elements than from a dramatic gunfight. The romantic adventurous version? That came from fiction, which always prefers a thrilling story over mundane reality. Dumb fact number 7. Cowboys always owned their loyal steeds. Hollywood loves that image of an inseparable duo, their trusty companions. But in reality, it was uncommon for a working cowboy to own the horse he rode. Horses were usually part of the ranch's assets and were loaned to the cowboys by their employers. And these weren't always the majestic, powerful animals you see in films. Often they were smaller, hardy ponies chosen for their nimbleness and endurance, suited for cattle work. The romantic idea of a man and his horse just makes for a better story. Dumb fact number 8. Cowboys constantly fought Native Americans. Many westerns make this a central theme, with cowboys and settlers in frequent violent clashes with hostile Indians. The gritty reality is that direct confrontations between working cowboys and Native American groups were relatively rare. Cowboys were busy with herding cattle. Large-scale violence against Native American populations was mostly carried out by the United States military, often as part of government policies to clear land for expansion and settlement. Not a routine activity for everyday cowboys. The Cowboys versus Indians narrative was a simplified and dramatic way to create conflict in stories, often fueled by colonial biases. Dumb fact number 9. Western towns were utterly lawless. Hollywood loves to show every frontier town as a chaotic place like Dodge City or Tombstone, overrun with outlaws and constant gunfights. While some boom towns that sprang up quickly around mines or new railroads could be violent, most Western towns actively tried to establish and maintain order. Most settlements had laws, law enforcement, and people who wanted safety. Actual gunfights were pretty infrequent, not daily events, and many towns had strict gun control, often requiring visitors to hand over their firearms when they arrived. Even before formal governments were set up, order was often kept through community groups. The idea of lawlessness just makes for better drama. Dumb fact number 10. High noon duels were common showdowns. Those scenes with two gunslingers facing off in the street, almost entirely a product of fiction. Formal, prearranged duels were exceedingly rare. Historical records only show a handful, like the Hickok-Tutt affair. Real gunfights were usually spontaneous, chaotic, and brutal close-quarter fights, often starting from arguments in saloons or ambush attempts. Participants would quickly look for cover, not stand exposed. The term gunslinger itself is a later invention, popularized by Hollywood in the 1920s. The high noon duel is just a very cinematic and dramatic trope, great for building tension. Dumb fact number 11. The gunfight at the OK Corral happened in the OK Corral. Well, the famous shootout on October 26, 1881, actually happened in a narrow vacant lot or alleyway next to the corral near C.S. Fly's photography studio in Tombstone, Arizona. And the whole thing lasted only about 30 seconds. Gunfight at the OK Corral just sounds catchier and more dramatic than gunfight in a vacant lot near the OK Corral. The name stuck, especially after a largely fictionalized biography of Wyatt Earp, and many movies use the title. Dumb fact number 12. 6-shooters were super accurate and powerful weapons of choice. Were they capable of amazing long-range shots? Not really. Early 6-shooters, especially those using black powder, fired relatively slow, heavy bullets. Their effective accuracy was generally limited to short ranges, about 50 feet or less. These guns could also be unreliable, and some even hazardous to the user. For situations needing more power, range, and accuracy, shotguns and rifles were often preferred. Trick shooting, like shooting a gun out of someone's hand, mostly a myth. Lead bullets of that era would more likely shatter on impact with metal. As Wyatt Earp supposedly said, "Fast is fine, accurate is final." Exaggerated firearm capabilities just make the gunslinger hero seem more skilled. Dumb fact number 13, saloon brawls were epic, furniture-smashing free-for-alls. While saloons could be rowdy and fights did happen, often fueled by alcohol or gambling disputes, the huge theatrical brawls are a big exaggeration. Saloon owners wanted to protect their property and avoid the cost of replacing everything. Efforts were made to prevent or quickly stop violence, like prohibiting firearms or hiring bouncers. Real fights were more likely impulsive, personal, and quickly contained. The big brawls are just highly entertaining and provide a burst of action for the movies. Dumb fact number 14, sheriffs were often corrupt or cowardly. Were they typically in the pocket of some rich cattle baron or just plain incompetent? While there were certainly some corrupt lawmen, and some groups like the Texas Rangers had periods of excessive force and corruption, this wasn't the norm. Many sheriffs and marshals were dedicated individuals committed to keeping peace, and towns wanted competent law enforcement. The image of the corrupt or cowardly sheriff is often a story device to make the independent hero look even better and more necessary. Dumb fact number 15, vigilante justice was always pure and justified. Did brave citizens always band together justly to hunt down villains? Vigilance committees did form where formal law was weak, but their actions weren't always pure or just. These groups often dished out their own rough version of justice, which could mean quick trials without due process, and often summary executions like lynchings. The San Francisco Committee of Vigilance in 1856, for example, had over 6,000 members, hanged several people, and forced city officials to resign, all outside the legal system. There was often a thin line between community protection and mob rule, and personal grudges could easily influence vigilante actions. The idea of swift justice is appealing, especially when legal systems seem slow or corrupt. Dumb fact number 16, gold was just lying around for the picking during the gold rush. Hollywood loves showing prospectors stumbling upon huge gold nuggets and getting rich overnight. The reality for most during the California gold rush and others was hard work, disappointment, and often failure. By the time most 49ers arrived, the easily accessible surface gold was mostly gone. The real fortunes were often made by merchants who supplied the miners with overpriced goods or by those who developed larger mining claims. Prospecting was grueling work, and most miners left with little or nothing. The get-rich-quick story is always compelling, and the stories of the very few who did strike it rich were widely publicized, overshadowing the common experience of hardship. Dumb fact number 17, horses were the only way to get around. Western films are full of people on horseback. While horses were essential, especially for cowboys and travel in remote areas, they weren't the only primary mode of transport, especially as the 19th century went on. The expansion of the railroad network dramatically changed travel and commerce. By the late 1800s, railroads connected even relatively remote western territories, becoming the backbone of westward expansion. Before widespread rail, stagecoaches also played a big role in transporting people and mail. The image of a lone rider on horseback is just more romantic and symbolic of freedom. Dumb fact number 18, tumbleweeds are a native symbol of the dusty Old West. Are those iconic plants rolling across deserted streets truly from the Old West? Contrary to their iconic status, the most common type of tumbleweed, Russian thistle, is not native to North America. It was accidentally introduced to the U.S. in the 1870s, likely in flaxseed imported from Russia. As an invasive species, it spread rapidly. So, tumbleweeds wouldn't have been a feature when many early Western towns were first established. There are actually multiple species of non-native salsola now in North America. They quickly became a common sight, and their distinctive look made them an evocative symbol for filmmakers, even though they weren't originally part of the landscape. Dumb fact number 19. The Wild West was exclusively male-dominated. Were women only in supporting roles like damsels in distress or saloon girls? The gritty reality is that the American West was populated by a diverse array of women who played crucial roles. Women were homesteaders, accounting for perhaps as much as 1/3 of all land claims under the Homestead Act. They worked as mail carriers like Mary Stagecoach Mary Fields, the first African-American woman in that role. They were famous sharpshooters like Annie Oakley and Calamity Jane. Women were also business owners, writers like the Native American author Mourning Dove, bounty hunters, and some even lived disguised as men to get opportunities, like Charlotte Charlie Parkhurst, a stagecoach driver. The frontier sometimes offered women more autonomy than the more established eastern states. Land-grant colleges in the West were among the first to promote co-education. Traditional Western stories just focused on male-centric themes, overlooking women's contributions. Dumb fact number 20. Train robberies happened all the time. Were masked bandits constantly chasing down locomotives? While train robbery was a real crime that peaked in the 1890s, and it's a powerful movie trope, these events weren't as common as films suggest. One estimate suggests fewer than 1,000 attempted or completed train robberies in the U.S. between 1866 and 1910, averaging about 20 per year, and not all in the West. Bank robberies, another movie favorite, were even rarer. Train robberies are just inherently cinematic and make for thrilling action. The 1903 film The Great Train Robbery was hugely influential and established this as a classic Western theme. Dumb fact number 21. White hat. Heroes and black hat villains was an age-old code. This color-coded hat thing, was it an actual dress code of the Old West? Not really. It was a visual shorthand largely established in American Western films between the 1920s and 1940s. In black and white films, distinct hat colors helped audiences quickly tell heroes from villains, especially in fast-paced scenes. The Great Train Robbery is often cited as an early example. Real cowboys and outlaws chose hats based on practicality, preference, or fashion, not their morals. It's a simple and effective storytelling tool that got deeply ingrained. Dumb fact number 22. Native Americans were all bloodthirsty savages. This portrayal of Native Americans relentlessly attacking innocent settlers is a profoundly harmful and racist stereotype. Native American peoples were a vast array of distinct nations and cultures, each with its own languages, customs, and political structures. Violence, when it occurred, was often a response to defending their ancestral lands, their way of life, broken treaties, and the pressures of westward expansion. The very term Indian was a misnomer. Early European colonists often spread negative stereotypes to justify seizing land and resources. While intertribal warfare existed before European contact, the portrayal of universal, unprovoked aggression against settlers is a gross distortion. These stereotypes served colonial narratives and made for clear antagonists in dime novels, Buffalo Bill's Wild West shows, and early films. Dumb fact number 23. The lone cowboy hero was the norm. This dominant image of the rugged individualist who rides in, solves problems single-handedly, and rides off is largely an American myth. In reality, cooperation and community were vital for survival on the frontier. Cattle weren't driven by lone individuals, but by groups of drovers. Wagon trains relied on collective effort. Settlers formed land clubs. Mining camps developed systems of contracts. The West was settled and built by families, groups, and communities, not just solitary adventurers. The lone wolf is a powerful archetype that simplifies storytelling. Dumb fact number 24. Outlaws like Jesse James were Robin Hood figures. Were famous outlaws like Jesse James really stealing from the rich and giving to the poor? They are often romanticized this way. While some, like James, cultivated this image with help from sympathetic newspaper editors, the historical evidence doesn't support the given to the poor part. James and his gang did target banks and trains, often associated with authorities he opposed as a former Confederate guerrilla. But there's no credible evidence they shared their loot. In reality, these gangs committed numerous violent crimes, including ruthless murders. Most outlaws were criminals driven by self-interest. The Robin Hood archetype is just appealing because it morally justifies criminal actions. Dumb fact number 25. The Wild West era lasted for many decades. Did this untamed, lawless frontier stretch almost indefinitely through the 19th century? The period most accurately identified as the Wild West, with major frontier expansion, long-distance cattle drives, famous outlaws, and significant conflicts with Native American tribes, was relatively brief. It's generally considered to have lasted about 30 years, roughly from the end of the Civil War in 1865 to around 1890. By the turn of the 20th century, most of the West was significantly transformed by settlement, towns, railroads, schools, and more formal law enforcement. Historian Frederick Jackson Turner noted the closing of the frontier in 1893. The stories from this short but dramatic period were so compelling that they've been endlessly retold, creating the illusion of a much longer era. The image we often hold of Stetson-wearing, quick-drawn heroes in lawless towns is largely a product of Hollywood, dime novels, and showmen. The real American West was far more complex, diverse, and nuanced. Cowboys were often small, unshaven, ethnically diverse laborers doing tough, low-paying work. Towns generally sought order. Iconic events have been misplaced in our memory, and even the tools of the trade and the landscape itself differ from their mythical versions. Women played far more significant roles than typically shown, and the lone hero was more story than reality in a land where community was essential. These myths were created because the entertainment industry needed simple narratives, clear heroes and villains, and exciting action. These stories, while often distorting history, tapped into our desires for adventure and heroism. The Wild West myth became a cornerstone of American identity, often glossing over the hardships and injustices. Understanding why these myths were made and how they became so embedded is as important as debunking them. It helps us look at popular culture more critically and appreciate the real, intricate truths of the past. The actual history of the American West, with its diverse peoples, huge challenges, innovations, and community building, is a story richer and more compelling than any movie fantasy. What Wild West fact surprised you the most to learn was fake? Let us know down in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And if you enjoyed this journey through the real Wild West, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next historical adventure. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next trail.